Hey guys, so I just wanted to go over how to make a bed in Marvelous Designer. We're going to kind of make a bed that looks a little similar to this, so let's begin. So first you're going to need a mattress, and I already kind of have that. So you're really just making a cube, but the sizing is important. So you see the size here. That's going to be important to match if you want the same results that I'm going to get in Marvelous Designer. Other than that, you're not really going to see it, so it's just a basic cube. In Marvelous Designer, we are going to open it up and we're just going to get this totally blank slate. So what this is on the left side is this is your 3D workspace and this is your 2D workspace. So we're going to add in an avatar. And our avatar will be the mattress that you just imported or that you just made. We need the scale to be in millimeters. So we're going to open that up. There we go. Now, whenever you click anywhere, you're going to get this gizmo as long as you're in this mode. This little icon here needs to be selected. And you're going to get this gizmo. So if you want to, which we do, we want to lift this up. Ideally, you're going to have some sort of a base under here. I didn't figure that through yet. So yeah, make whatever base you want, but the floor actually allows for collisions. So the cloth will be colliding with the floor. We're gonna start by making our first polygon, which you're going to use this icon up here. So if you don't hold shift, it does a pretty good job of making straight lines anyways. Okay, so we're just making a rectangle. You'll see that in the 3D viewport, we have a light side and we have a dark side. The light side is what you want to be facing forward. That is the side where your normals are facing. So don't worry about, rotating this perfectly. Now we can use, I don't know what you call this tool, but we can use this tool and we're just gonna stretch it. It takes a second to compute, but yeah, we're going to kind of make this about the size. Maybe it's a little too big, but I want it to be about the size of the top of my mattress. Now I'm gonna press space, and that is going to start the simulation. And I'm gonna press space again, and now it stopped the simulation. Beautiful. Now what I'm gonna do is, using this tool, I'm going to highlight all of my edges. So we're gonna right click, and we're gonna do offset pattern outline. We want unfilled corners. And we want the distance to be about the size of the actual mattress here. Let's try 200. All right, we're good to go. So what we have to do now is we can press space again. It's going to do its thing and flop over, and that's good. I think I'm gonna just move this. By the way, if you are like, man, that didn't fall right, we can right click on this and we can do reset 3D arrangement. And now it goes back to the way that it looks in the 2D view. And I'm gonna just shift that over, press space, and now it's falling a little more evenly. I think that'll do. I don't want perfection anyways because life is not perfect. So we're going to click the sew tool. And the important thing to know about sewing is that you don't want to reverse the sewing. You click and then you click again. Sometimes the clicking doesn't register. And now we have sewing happening. You can also do it in the 3D viewport. So if I click here and then I click again, now it's going to show that it's sewing. And each one of these sews are going to be a different color just so that it's easier for you to keep track. So that's really nice. I'll do it in the 2D viewport. So when we press space, then it's going to sew it all up. So now you see that the edges are nice and sewed together. It doesn't need to be perfect. I think that's about good. Now what we're going to do before we simulate is we're going to select these outer edges, not the inside of the sewing, but just the outer edges. And we're going to make it elastic. Press space one more time. And there we go. That's looking way better. If you want this, if you're going to do a super close-up of this and you want it even smoother, then you're going to want to change your particle distance to maybe 15 And the lower the number is, the more like smooth this is going to be, but the more subdivisions that you have. So you can see that that ever so slightly smoothed it out. And if I bring it down to like 8 or something, if I press space again and resimulate it, it's going to take a little longer because there's more subdivisions. But once it does do the calculation, you'll see it being a little smoother. By the way, if you want to see the wireframe, you can click this button over here, and then there's a little wireframe icon. You can see how dense that is. So that's like really dense. We're gonna put that back to 20, and I think we'll be good with that. So if you want to get back out of wireframe, just go to the solid mode. Okay, one more time, just press space for good measure. Make sure it recalculates, and I think we're good. So press space again to turn off the simulation, and we're going to right click and freeze this. We're also going to save this rectangle, approximately the size of the bed, but we can change it again later. We've got that, we're gonna click it, and actually we need to see which side is the dark side. So if you don't see a difference, like this fabric looks pretty much similar, we're gonna put this in wireframe mode, and you see that it disappears. So that means this is the front. So we're going to just move this around. So we want this just about on top of our bed. And I think I didn't make this wide enough, so I'm going to increase the width. I don't want this to be so long, like, because I'm gonna have it kind of fold over on itself. And we'll press space. Cool, so we can let that fall. And if you want to try a different fabric, let's click add. And we'll change our fabric color to, I don't know, something darker. And we're going to assign this to fabric number 2. So that means you have to click it, and you have to go down to fabric and click fabric number 2. You can go back to fabric, and one reason why we're doing this is because if you go to the preset, you have all these different presets that are already available in Marvelous Designer. So we can try something like linen. Sometimes when you start pulling and tugging, you'll start to notice that like fabrics will react differently. So that's something you might want to watch out for. I'm going to make another rectangle. So this is the front, so I'm going to rotate it. So if I use the 3D viewport, I'm going to go back into regular mode. I'm going to click the sewing, and I'll just sew here to here. Let's press space and see what happens. Cool, so it's starting to fall. We'll see if it falls the way we like. All right, cool. It might not be long enough, so sewing is up here and here. So that means if I move anything here, by the way, it's not gonna affect the placement in the 3D viewport. So that means I wanna stretch it down this way, and there we go. So very nice. This helps us to give the look that like the cloth is being folded over. And if for some reason you want it to have more of like a messy look, then we can just start clicking and dragging. So we're getting some real nice folds. It looks like it's kind of been slept in at the top, and I kind of like that. Press space again so that the simulation is turned off. By the way to know if the simulation is on and running is A, you'll get this cursor where you can pull things, and B, that little arrow will be orange. So if I press space again, then it turns off. Now I'm going to click both of these, and I'm going to freeze it. Okay, so now we have our mattress, like the first cover, the second cover, and now we're going to make the comforter. So our comforter is supposed to be a little bit fancy, right? So this is going to be a little more advanced, hopefully not bad. I'm just going to even this out in placement. Okay, cool. So we're going to, I guess we can copy and paste this, because this is about the size we want our comforter to be. Maybe it's a little wide, I'm not sure. You can see that it's kind of coming in the same shape because we copied and pasted it. We'll just lift it up. I want the comforter wider. We're gonna try that. I'm also gonna reset the 3D arrangement. Oh, because it's frozen. I gotta unfreeze it if I wanted to do anything. We have to reset 3D arrangement and I guess re-put it back in. This is gonna be the top, right? This is the darker side, this is gonna be the top. Because we are going to make a comforter that's made, you know, so that we can get this like puff, we need 2 sheets. So it can't just be made out of 1 sheet, so just be aware of that. edge and the bottom edge, and then you're going to offset as internal line. Maybe we'll try 250, 240. I want to make the boxes as even as possible here. So we'll try that. And then we want to do the same with these outer edges, offset as internal line. We want it to be more even. Cool, I think that looks even. So we're gonna do a lot of sewing. So now we're going to select that polygon tool and select the entire thing. And I'm going to copy and paste. Now that's over here. We need to see which side this is the dark side. Come over to the dark side. So we're gonna just rotate that and we're gonna stick it underneath. Right here. Okay? Doesn't have to be rotated perfectly. The sewing will probably fix most of that anyways. So we need to start sewing all of these boxes together. So the best way to do that is I think just kind of eyeballing it. We can start with the outer edge and we need to see visually, we can use this as our guide. Where is that outer edge? So it looks like I should, oh no, that's good. All right, so I'm gonna click it. And if you see that this is straight, that means you definitely did it right. So now we have done one whole side and you can see it looks pretty good here. So now we have to do this side. That was our last one. So now we have sewn everything together. It looks a little bit like a mess, but it's going to work. So we position this just about in the right spot. I'm gonna save it. All right, I'm going to press space in this, so it shouldn't be inflated by any means. We want it to have a little bit more puffiness. So we're getting that nice boxy puffy look, but honestly, I think this whole thing needs to be a bit bigger. It's too short. One thing we can start to do to get some more wrinkles is messing with this shrinkage weft and shrinkage warp. So that's going to start to stretch it one way or another. And let's see if we can dial that in a little more. By the way, you could also see the collisions happening on the floor. So it's not going past the actual floor, it's interacting with it. So just be aware of that. So I want to increase the polygon count of that, which is reducing the particle distance so that it's a little more realistic because it has more subdivisions. That also means it's going to go slower, as it's already doing right now. So if I click add, I'm going to make another fabric. Let's start messing with these presets and seeing what we think is maybe going to give us the nicest result. Changing the fabric has done this so far. Looks like it has to recalculate and it is going much slower. Okay, so once you've simulated everything, then you can start to click and drag and pull. So we want to have that like messy bed look. Hopefully we can achieve it with enough pulling. And another trick I can use is W. So if I click W, you see that little orange? That means I can I've now pinned it. So I can now click and drag it and kind of pull it around. I want to pull it up so it doesn't intersect with itself. And we're starting to get the fold that we're looking for. So if I click W again, I'll unpin that. And then let's see where that kind of falls. Another trick, by the way, if you really know you want a wrinkle in a certain place, you could always bring this into ZBrush and use some ZBrush presets to make wrinkles where you want them to be. It's not perfect, and that's what I like about it. We have this nice little fold happening here, and then it gives it a nice curve, and I think that looks pretty cool. Now we have this really cool fat comforter, and I like what it's doing, so I'm going to freeze it, which means that when I click simulate, nothing's gonna happen, and it's not going to compute it once we start to work on pillows. So the pillows that we're looking at, they're just pretty basic pillows, just a bunch of them stacked on top of each other. So that should be the easiest part of this entire thing. We're just gonna make a pillow. Another rectangle. Okay, so we gotta find that rectangle. There it is. Good. So now we're going to sew. I'm going to use the 3D mode or the 3D window to sew. So click, click. I need to add some pressure, and I'm going to put this to fabric 2. Let's just see what happens and press space. Backboard, I think is what it's called. We don't have that, so we're just gonna move our pillows over. It's not gonna lean on anything, so they'll just have to like lean on themselves. Okay, let's say I'm cool with that real messy look. I'm just going to copy and paste it again. Alright, let's say we're good with that. So I'm going to freeze it. And then there is one more pillow that we can make that I thought would be cool. I'll copy and paste this. So now what I'm going to do is make, using this tool to create, I'm gonna just kind of really roughly make this outline. And then copy and paste. And that is going to, we need to right click and we want to flip vertically. Let's move this out the way. Put that under there. Okay, cool. Now we're gonna do that again for this side. So I need to sew these two pieces together, these two pieces, these two pieces, these two pieces, and lastly these guys. Once we're good, we're going to stop the simulation, and in the 2D palette we can click freeze. So that's a little tidbit. So if you're happy with this, we can start to export. I'm gonna save it. If we're going for the picture, you'd need a baseboard or a backboard, and you'd want a couple more pillows to throw in here. So this is a little empty of pillows, but I think you guys get the point. If you want to go to UV editor, and you zoom out, you'll see that everything is kind of the same as it's laid out in the 2D pattern window, but we can just scale all these down to match in one of these little boxes. So this is your UV box. I personally would like to have just about each one of these things in its own separate UV. So I'll go back to the simulation, we're back to the 2D, and we'll go to File, Export, OBJ. Okay, so I believe these are the settings that I want to do. So it doesn't matter to me thin or thick. I do want unified UV coordinates. So now we can go back to Cinema and go to File, Merge. We have Bed Finished OBJ. So it's got its own like texture on this that we don't really need. So I'm just going to delete all of these textures, and here we are. We have, here just so you can see this better, we have a nice beautiful bed. And from here you can add whatever textures you want to add to it. If you think that this like isn't smooth enough, you're welcome to throw it in a subdivision surface. Another thing you can do is if you go to the modifiers, you can click smoothing. Yeah, so that smooths it a lot. So from here we can mess with the smoothing settings. Definitely does define these more. So that's pretty cool. One thing you could do in Marvelous Designer is if you were to decrease the particle count to like maybe 3 or 5, you're essentially doing the same thing that I'm doing in the subdivision surface. And again, if you want some regular wrinkles, you can either add that in the normals of your texture, or you can add it in ZBrush. I'm gonna add another HDRI environment, and I'm just going to put a color and have that be the visible environment. So we'll turn this down. Okay, cool. So here's a diffuse. Let's see what image textures we can find. Maybe we could try this? I'm not really sure. All right, we'll bring in the normal. That'd be cool to get like a duotone, you know? That's the right fabric for, you know, a comforter, but let's see what else we can do. Yeah, we're getting a nice little bump. I mean, I think we need to make it a little bit smaller, but at this size, you're really not seeing any issues. So let's do a Octane gradient, and I'll make it whatever color I want. Yeah, it's like a soft gray. It's so pretty. Cool. When you zoom in more, you can really see the bumps, and if you want it protruded a little more, sometimes I will increase the normal count a little more. And maybe another thing we could try just to see if we can get a little more bump is if I was to add a color correct, and I put this on the roughness channel. I add a color correct to totally make sure it's desaturated and reduce the brightness, and you can see that when I put this in the bump, it does a pretty big difference. So I think it makes it a little more realistic. We just have to reduce it to make sure we don't overdo it. But for the most part, I mean, that's a pretty awesome texture, and we have control with what colors we really want it to be. If I want to make this like a navy blue, I can. So I think that's, oh, that's a little too much, but I think it's really nice. And if you want to add an image in here, you can see that you can even add an image. I mean, obviously this is not the right image, but how cool does that look? That you can just apply whatever texture you want. You could find something off the internet and just throw it on your comforter, and I feel like it looks really sick. Oh, and by the way, if you want a little bit of that texture to show up, what you could do is make this kind of like black and white, and then we can multiply it on top of your texture. And now you're starting to see, although that's too strong, so we can just make the black point not as strong, but now you're getting like that fabric texture coming through. I mean, you still had the physical texture, but now you're seeing it. So just something to keep in mind. It will darken your picture overall, so I guess if you want to mess with that, then you can add one more color correct right after here and brighten it up a little bit by reducing the gamma, sorry. Like I said, obviously this is not the picture you'd want, but that's how you would make it. Just looks so cool zoomed out. All right, so let's use this as our base for the next texture. So I'm just gonna copy it, paste it, and plug things back in. Let's make these sheets maybe a pale pink. And then if we zoom in, I mean, this is if you want to use the same texture. I would just change the size of one of the textures at least, so it doesn't like look identical. You could totally just use another type of texture. Totally earthy themed. Ooh, this is a cool one. Okay, cool, let's try this. This is a lot of colors, but you get the point. Like, once you UV mapped anything, you can put whatever texture you want. Yeah, so anyways, feel free to mess with this and make it your own. You can go on the internet and find some textures or images or whatever it is you want to use. You can go on Quixel, you can go on Polygon, and yeah, there's a lot out there, but I think it's a lot of fun when you have the ability to learn Marvelous Designer and get good at it. You can make some really awesome things. So that's it, guys. I hope this helped you out, and hopefully it gets you started on Marvelous Designer. And if you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, thanks for watching.